people sometimes when they are with me, they kind of get baffled and they're like, how do you do that? Quite honestly speaking, I don't know. Hey guys, it's Ijaz. I am a fashion and a wildlife photographer. In our last lighting video, I spoke about lighting. I spoke about the gray card, the grass, the sky, what to do with your camera when you measure it. This time, I'm going to speak to you about what happens if you get thrown a curveball with lighting. What I really mean is the side light, right? And what do you measure for? The dark side or the light side? So guys, let's talk about the side light. Let me actually recap what we spoke about in the previous video. And in the previous video I was speaking to you guys about, take your camera, point it to grass or point it up to the sky, and that is your perfect exposure. Adjust your exposure to meet that and let the pointer get exactly to 0 in the middle, and that's your perfect exposure. Then you point it to a white horse or a polar bear or anything white, and you want white. The camera's job is to make everything gray, so it's going to make it gray. Your job is to make it white, or if that's what you want. So then you take that and you open up 1.5, 2 stops to make it white, and you do the exact opposite when you are photographing something dark, because the camera is going to make it gray and you want it to be dark, so you're going to stop down. So in this video, what I want to address, which gets challenging, and we've had these questions on YouTube asking, hey Ijaz, now what happens if you have side light? So here I am in my studio, and there you have a light side and a dark side. Now which one of these two do you think is perfect exposure? And the answer is none of them, because if I did expose perfectly for one side, the other side would be absolutely dark. And if I did expose for this side, which is the darker side, perfectly, then this side would be blown out. So here comes the bigger question. And of course this is controlled environment. I'm hitting the light in a certain way so I can get my shadows and so on. But when you are out in the wild, what are you planning? What will you do? So like I say all the time, know the emotion that you are looking for, and then go get the image by making it as simple as possible, because as humans we love easy, or at least I do, I should say. I love easy. You give it to me easy, I'm in, right? So how do we make it easy? You take your camera, you point it over here with a spot meter, and then you get your right exposure, meaning your camera is telling you to do something on the bright side. You take it and you move it up or move it down depending on what kind of subject you have. Then you go back and you measure this side, and then you take it up or take it down depending on what you have, or depending on what kind of subject you have and what you want, like light subject or dark subject. And then you come to a balance and say, okay, I'm going to do this. Now that's not happening in wildlife. It's impossible. So what I have been doing, I call it a cheat. It's not a cheat. It's very simple. The camera you point. Now if the sun is coming from here, if I point my camera and measure this, and it's a white horse or a polar bear or anything white, so my camera is going to make it gray. So I open up 2 stops. So if I open up 2 stops, this becomes white, right? What is the camera doing for this side? It's doing exactly the same thing for this side, right? So you try and go halfway in the middle. So instead of opening up 2 stops, go 1 stop or go 1.25. Don't open up 100%, because then this side is going to get to a place where it won't match with this side, right? So this and this, I like soft shadows. I like softness in my light. And if that is what you're looking for, then you expose for this. Don't open up 100%, open up 50%, and you will get your darks and you'll get your lights. So that's a white subject, which I think is easy to understand. And now you know how to do a white subject. Okay, great. Now what happens if you have another issue? And the other issue is you're photographing a lion. The lion is gray, right? It's a gray tone in any case. It's mid-gray. So what are you going to do with that? You're not going to open up and you're not going to stop down, because this side automatically is going to be exposed gray. So the camera doesn't want you to do anything. It's going to expose gray. Gray tone, your line is gray tone, exposure is right. The problem is not this side. The problem is this side. Now, what are you going to do about that? Because this side could be super, super dark. Like I said before, this is a studio, so I am in control with what I want. I have added a reflector over here so that softens this side, so I don't have such dark shadows. I do have shadows, but I don't have such dark shadows. You can go and have someone stand over there. It's in the wild, it's impossible. So what do? What I do is I expose for the dark side. When my subject matter is gray already, I expose for the dark side. And what does that do? The camera is making it gray, means this is perfect, right? This is the side that I need to worry about now. It switched. You see how it went from white subject to a gray tone subject, like a lion or a giraffe or anything that doesn't need any exposure shift. You will expose for the dark side. In a wider subject, you will expose for the light side. So now you are going to say, Ijaz, what if I do want I don't want the softness. I do want my shadows to be super dark. Me personally, I don't know if people like that, but again, that's just me. Maybe that's what you want to do. So if you want this side to be as dark as you possibly can, just move yourself a little bit. Even if you move yourself 10 degrees this way, it's going to get darker. If you move yourself 10 degrees this way, it's going to get a little bit brighter. First of all, if you don't have the luxury of moving yourself and you're stuck in the situation of 50-50, then that's what you do. The ideal thing would be you move yourself either to have the sun in front of the subject, which means lit totally flat, right? Or the sun behind it, which makes for an amazing, amazing lighting, but you need to know how to play with it so you can get your silhouette, your silver lining, and then you can get the exposure right, so you can get all the emotions into the face or whatever else you're shooting. So if you want, so going back to speaking about dark shadows, if you are into super dark shadows where you don't have anything at all, you don't follow that rule at all. So if you're shooting gray, you'll expose for this side. Now, if you're shooting a white subject and you want this side to be absolutely dark, then you are still going to expose the bright side, not the dark side. The dark side comes into play only for gray tones, lions, right? Giraffes, anything that has a gray tone. Now, let's speak about a darker subject. What are you going to expose for? So let's just ask ourselves a question. If I expose this on the dark side, the camera is going to make it what? Gray, right? You want it to be dark. If you expose for this side, what is the camera going to do? The camera is going to make it gray. So the camera really doesn't have to do much, right? You have to do a lot here. So you want it dark. Now, do you want this side to be dark and this side to be dark and both of them even? Then you got to move yourself. And if you want your shadows, but you still need to have details on the darker side, you expose for this side, to the brighter side. Because if you expose for this side and you move yourself brighter or darker, if you make yourself brighter, this side may be too bright. But if you make yourself darker, then this side comes out to being in a place where you like it. So do the same exact thing like I said in the whites, but cheat, go halfway in the middle. So halfway in the middle for a side lit subjects for me has always worked. My bright side is never too bright, my dark side is never too dark, and this way I'm following exactly the same principles but cutting it in half. Right? So I'm not having the entire glass, I'm just having half of it. So that to me is lighting on the side. It is tricky. It is more tricky, if I should say, than just a flat light in the front. So let's come back and let's talk about backlight. Backlight to me, it's the most creative light ever, because it adds depth to your photograph, because now you have your point here, then you have your point here, and then you have your silhouette, and that just adds so much involvement from your audience to your photograph, because they're looking at three different layers. What do you want when it's backlit? That is the bigger question. Do you want a perfect exposed front with the light hitting at the back? Or do you want just the silhouette and a little bit of exposure where you can see something but you can? So based on what you want and the emotion that you're trying to bring into your photograph, I'm going to say to you, that's what you do with your lighting. And what is that? I am going to say lighting on a backlit subject. What happens to our sensor on the camera? The camera sensor gets fooled in thinking it's brighter. So I hope I'm making sense to you guys, because when you're sending light directly into the lens and the camera is looking at it, it's thinking it's brighter than it really is. So what is the camera doing at this point? The camera is taking that subject and making it gray. But if you listen to what the camera is saying to you, then you are going to be wrong, because the camera is fooled by the light getting straight into your lens, and so it's making it darker, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to open up. When it makes it darker, you're going to open up. How you open up is totally up to you. You know, whether you're going to open up with shutter speed or whether you're going to open up with aperture, that's totally up to you, depending on the emotion you're trying to bring in here. But you need to open up. So now you have two things to think about. One, you're going to think about opening up. So if I was here and the light's hitting me from the back and you want my face to be perfectly lit, so to speak, you're going to compensate for the camera being fooled. Normally, if the light's coming into the camera, it gets fooled by about 2 stops. That's just my opinion. That's what I've been doing. So if you take 2 stops, so you open up 2 stops. Now, depending on whether the subject is white or dark, you will compensate for that. So now you've brought your exposure to a normal place because of the sun at the back. By opening it up by 2 stops, you're going to bring it back to normal, right? So now it's gone back to normal. Now you're going to think again, and you're going to say to yourself, okay, I want a white subject. What do I do? Camera's making it gray, mind you, right? So we're going to open up another stop and a half or stop. So now you're opening up 3 stops. If it was a dark subject, what are you going to do? Backlight, the camera's being fooled. Your math automatically open up by 2 stops. Okay, great. But it's a dark subject. Now, are you going to take that and stop down because it's a dark subject? You're right. That's exactly what you're going to do. You are going to stop down. So it's a dark subject, you stop down by 1 stop. So you get the relationship between camera, what the camera sees, and what you are going to see as a photographer, and what you are going to determine and maneuver around. So straight light, not a problem. Point it to a gray matter, that's your right exposure. You look at your subject, white subject, dark subject, you open up or you shut down. Side subject, you're going to have another thing to think about. Side subject, should I expose for the right side or should I expose for the left side? I mean, should I expose for the side the sun is hitting me, or expose for the dark side? Now that again actually in relationship totally depends on the emotion that you're trying to get. Me, I don't like it super dark. I want this side to have some kind of detail, right? So I basically go for this side if it is a white subject. I go for this side if it is a dark subject. That's just my math. You can do what you want. Backlight, I always open up 2 stops. Backlight, period. That's a rock solid rule I have for my photography. I open up 2 stops when the light's hitting me exactly from the back. And then I determine whether the subject is white or dark, whether I'm shooting a horse, whether I'm shooting a bear. Anyway, so that's what you do. You 2 stops, you open up no matter what it is. You open up 2 stops because your camera is being fooled. Situations where your camera is being fooled are sun hitting you from the back. If you're in a place where it's full of snow, right? The reflection of the snow, the sun beating up on it and the reflection of the snow, that fools your camera as well. If you're on a boat or you're on the edge of a lake or a beach, that the water, the reflections of the water, that fools your camera as well. But of course it's the camera. The camera is doing what it's supposed to do. It will get fooled because it's trying to give you the gray, right? But you are thinking and you're saying, you're fooling me, so I'm going to open up 2 stops. So if you follow these rules, it makes it easier. What you do is you get to know whether my subject is white or black. You see what you want your subject to be, whether you want hard shadows or light shadows or details on the darker side. And once you've determined that, and once you've taken your measurement, meaning with the grass or the sky, you just have to worry about these 2 things. You don't have to keep looking. I see photographers looking like they're missing out on everything that's going on. They're looking at their own camera. I don't believe in that. I mean, I saw a video from this gentleman who is an absolute amazing bird photographer. His name is Mark. I forget his last name. He's from Florida. And I was watching one of his videos where he was speaking about how you never take your eyes off the camera. I mean, he has adjusted his camera in such a way where he never has to do that. Because I think doing that is insanity. You're missing out on the wildlife. You're missing out on all the action that's happening. So he's made his camera and he's added settings. I mean, I've used tips from him too about not looking, like only look through your camera, because in his settings he shows everything, meaning what you do and what you don't do and how you do it by just moving a button here and there. What an amazing photographer he is, and very, very technical. When I say technical, very technical. He knows his equipment. But I, on the other side, I know my equipment, of course. I have been shooting for a long time, so I don't have a choice but not to know my equipment. But I try to make things as simple as possible, not relying on technology. Even to this day, I don't rely on technology to do my focusing for me. People sometimes when they are with me, they kind of get baffled and they're like, how do you do that? Quite honestly speaking, I don't know, because I just put it on spot and I just chase my subject around. I don't let the camera do all the focusing. It's why would I let something that's not living do the thinking for me? And I get it, AI is amazing, but I think my AI for the focusing is better, so I just do that. But yeah, if you guys get a chance, I don't know if I can find the link, but maybe if I do find the link to Mark's video on how he sets his camera up, I will link it in the video here, because technically he is amazing. Creatively, he's also amazing. So yeah, go follow him and go look at the videos. And what I'm trying to say here is don't go down and up and down and up. You're missing out on everything. Just keep these simple rules in your mind, which would be, front light you open up, and side light and the back light, and the things that I've spoken to you guys about earlier on. And you will be fine. You won't have to look at your back of your camera. You know that you're going to come back with perfect images. So I hope this helped, guys, and I will speak to you guys soon. Thank you.